Welcome back to the StarCast podcast. This week, we are talking about something near and dear to all of our hearts, marketing, and in specific, web marketing and the need to have a website. I have an awesome guest today. I'd like to welcome Connie Holland. She is the founder of Pixality Design, and they are a website design and digital strategist firm. Joining us from Nebraska. Welcome, Connie.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Connie and I met when we both became certified management consultants for Mindbody. And, which, as many of you know, comes from the fitness and beauty space and has morphed into wellness. So Connie and I met there and got along. And I thought, she's a very sharp person. I've seen her do a few presentations and she really knows her stuff. So I thought this would be a great topic to introduce. But I was really fascinated also to ask Connie about her journey into the space, as I often am with guests on StarCast, because Connie used to fly jet planes, and here she is at her desk. So tell us a little bit about how your career path, Connie. How did you come to be here now?
Yeah, it is definitely a little different background, I guess. So I went to the Air Force Academy for college. I was a swimmer there. I basically went there to swim and then ended up in Air Force pilot training and flew KC-10s active duty.
Not everybody gets to go to Air Force pilot training. Come on.
Yeah. I graduated pilot training in 2001, which meant that I was just straight into, all the conflicts that we had overseas and did a bunch of deployments in those first years. I flew a tanker aircraft. Later ended up joining the Air National Guard. So I was part-time, which led me kind of into the entrepreneurial journey because I had a little more time on my hands and had little kids at home and kind of needed a creative outlet in addition to it. So I started with an Etsy shop actually. So handmade goods, started designing my own websites and then decided I really liked the website part more.
Interesting. So
than the textile.
What were you making to sell on Etsy?
Yeah, I was doing leather purses and handbags.
Oh, wow.
So sewing things. So that was fun for a while.
Interesting. So I'm so amazed about the pilot part. I mean, you were a woman among few, I'm assuming, that were Air Force pilots.
Yeah. It's about 10% of females in the pilot population.
Do you miss flying?
I do on nice days, nice sunny days. I don't miss all the paperwork that goes along with it, but I mean, it was a great career, a great sense of being on a team with people, especially the aircraft that I flew. There was a team of people on there. We had a crew of 4 at least, and traveling the world, accomplishing a mission with a group of people. There's a lot of fulfillment in that. And, that's part of it. I mean, it came out of like my fitness background as well too. And I feel like people get that in this industry, the fitness and wellness industry, like you are working with a team to deliver something and that you can be proud of. And so it was great for that. I really, got to travel, got to see things, got to work with some incredible people.
And what was your fitness background routine? Like what have you done that made you familiar with that world as well?
So I was a swimmer growing up, swimmer through college. That was my main competitive sport. And then since then, as an adult, I'm definitely in the population where I'm looking to add whatever different fitness routines, wellness, beauty routines, to my, to what I do. So I've just jumped around a bunch with that, since I really don't swim much anymore.
No.
But did through college quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it's hard to find time to get in the pool when you have kids, especially, and you have hassle of kids, right?
Yeah,
So
I've got 4.
4 kids. That takes up a lot of time. So that's so interesting that you made a website to sell your things on Etsy, and you decided you liked making the website better than making the things on Etsy. How long did it take you to realize that?
You know what? I had a pretty successful Etsy shop for about 5 years probably. And then I kind of creatively just got to like the point where like, yeah, I kind of made everything I want to make. And it was just a natural moving on. And I would say like pixels are cheaper than leather and fabric. So you can get a little more creative and try new things and then just delete it if it doesn't work. So it worked, it was a nice, pretty easy transition. And then about that same time, I left the Air National Guard. So I wasn't flying anymore and was kind of looking to replace that income, my part-time income there. So I decided to go more into, helping small business owners with their websites and took some training, and rest is history.
Wow. So you basically taught yourself how to do this.
Yep, pretty much. There's all kinds of online courses and stuff if you really start digging into it. So over years of, just, self-taught, but education, lots of people to learn from on the internet.
Hard to know when it's not your field, like what do you need to know? Because you're right, there are so many courses about anything. And when you look at them, you think, oh, I need to know all these things and all these things, but you probably don't need to know all of it. You need to know some of it. Certainly, you need to know the logistics of working with the software, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's just basic, as a small business owner, like just basic learning about graphic design. If you're going to be designing your own website or your social media graphics or flyers and all of that kind of stuff, either hire someone who has that, design eye or who has been trained in, learning how to make things look good. I think that's really important for this market for sure. In the beauty world, right? Like the aesthetics matter. And so I think as any small business owner, spending a little bit of time learning, how to make things look good is a valuable starting point. And that's how I started with graphic design. And then that moved into web design. And then that moved into other more technical marketing things.
Well, you make a great point, Connie, because not only do you have to know the basics of the software and how to put everything up, but it does have to look good. It has to be appealing, catch people's eye, be consistent with your brand. I mean, what are the latest statistics on how long we have when a consumer lands on our web page? Say, I know there's a number that we have to catch their attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's at least under 10 seconds somewhere on there. I mean, and that's the first impressions are made, right? And you know that you visit a website and your first impressions are made right away. You might not leave, but you're beginning to go down a path of thinking whether this business is credible and whether you want to trust them or not. So it's quick. It's within a few seconds.
Wow. Yeah. So you have to really put a lot of thought into that. What's the root of someone who wants to start a web page? Let's say it's a new business, obviously at this point, or you would have one, and you want to start your website. You have to have your branding in place, I assume. I mean, how do you advise people to proceed?
Yeah, there's really three elements that go into a website. So if you just start building a website and you don't have these three elements, handy, you're going to struggle to put that web page together. One is branding. So that's logo, colors, fonts. What is the cohesive look of the design going to be? Two is photos. And I can't overemphasize the importance of photos, especially in this industry. Having a good photo shoot of your real space and your real services and your real clients is really important to the trust factor. And then the copywriting is the third thing. And so that's the messaging. That's what the headlines are going to be. That's the words on the page. And giving some thought and some intention to that is going to make your website, make your brand stand out and make your website connect. So really the success of a website design hinges on those three things.
So I remember when websites, first came on the horizon, right? Of like, oh, you have to have a website, and how do we do this? And this was obviously many years ago, and we were paying people $10,000, $15,000 to design websites. I think it's a little bit different now, and there are more platforms, and there's also a component of it that makes you feel like, oh, I could do that myself. The commercials make you feel that. And maybe you can, but you're probably not that good at it. So how long does it take typically these days from the idea to having a working website?
Yeah, it really depends if you are doing it yourself, if you're hiring someone. And yes, absolutely, platforms are a lot easier. You don't need to code anymore to be able to, create a website, which back in the day you did. You had to like build it from scratch with code. And so of course people don't have those skills. There are a lot of platforms these days that you can put it together pretty quickly. It's how good it is. It's not really the speed thing anymore. It's more, if the intention is there with the branding and with the SEO and all of those things. And if you don't know what you don't know, it's hard to put that together. So if yes, you just need a website live on the internet, you could sit down for a day and get something out there. But it may not be really helping your business the way you want it to. So it could be a big range of time and spent. For me, my services are 1 week to 4 weeks, depending on the size of the website, get it up, but this is my full-time job, and I have a system and I do it. So it just really depends on who you're working with or if you're doing it yourself.
Are there platforms that you like to work in? I mean, there's so many options now.
Yeah, I work exclusively in Squarespace. I have found it to be the happy medium between design flexibility and powerful capabilities, and easy to manage. You don't have to, not a big long list of maintenance things you have to do every month to keep it up. They have customer support. So I've just found for small business owners, it's a good in between. It's a very manageable, but also very capable. So Squarespace is my favorite. There's definitely other good platforms out there. It depends a little bit if you've got an internal team that can keep it updated for you, or if want it to be kind of self, managing, where you want to go on that spectrum.
So if you decide to do it on your own and then you don't like how it looks, what are your options for coming to someone like yourself who's a professional and saying, please fix it up? I mean, what do you have to start over?
Yeah, that is one of the reasons why I recommend people start with Squarespace, even if they are DIYing it, because Squarespace has a base platform where if you bring me your DIY Squarespace site and you're like, I like, 80% of it, can you help me bring it across the finish line with these extra 20% of customizations? I don't have any problem jumping into a Squarespace account because I know how it's built. That's not the case with like WordPress sites, where if you put together a WordPress site, most designers will not jump into a WordPress site that they didn't build from the ground up, because it's kind of, you're stacking all these foundations together. Whereas Squarespace has a base foundation. So it's easier to hire someone to help you take it the rest of the way. So yeah, I have a specific service. I help clients with that, prospects with that all the time, where they get the site where, maybe they do have a design background. They're like, I like how it looks, but I don't have the SEO and I don't have it integrated with my scheduling software. So can we get it to that next functionality level? And yeah, so that comes down to another reason why I like Squarespace, because you can take it anywhere, and a lot of designers, you have a lot of options for people to help you with it.
It's good to hear that. So, I mean, you specialize in boutique fitness, wellness businesses. How did that come to be your play space, so to speak?
Yeah, really, because I liked those businesses. So when I first started, I was designing websites for everyone. And I really looked back at one of those first years at all the clients I had, and a salon spa and a yoga studio were my two favorite projects of the year. And I think looking back, it was because those were places I would be a client at. And I really like the, submission of those types of businesses and how down to earth the business owners tend to be. They know their in-person services and their relationships with in-person are really important. And just, working with people who believe that, really, I felt inspired on those two projects. So I really very intentionally was like, okay, this is what I do. This is the niche that I serve. And it was fitness, wellness, beauty businesses, which led me to Mindbody, which then, everything grew from there. But yeah, it was pretty much, I wanted to work with businesses that I would be a client of. And, because I get excited to work with businesses like that.
Well, that seems like it was a great strategy to be like really versed in this one vertical and to be really good at it. And it leads to my next question, which is that all of these businesses rely on scheduling software, right? They're not stores that you walk into when you go down the street, and they all work on appointments either for classes or for treatments. So you need to build websites that integrate with scheduling software. Could you speak a little bit to that process?
Yeah, that is one of the biggest goals, and it's constantly an evolving thing with all the softwares and the different softwares that are rising. But your website in general really needs to do three things for your business. It needs to help you get found. It needs to build trust with the reader. And then the last thing, it needs to connect with the reader. Typically for spas and salons, that's booking, or at least calling to book, something like that, right? So that third step is something that we talk a lot about on website projects, is how, given the scheduling software that you're using, and I always, tell people there's pros and cons to every scheduling software, and how the internal ops, the day-to-day ops of your business run. So whatever scheduling software you think is best, we'll figure out the best way to put it on your website. But there's no, black and white one way to do it. It really depends on, what that first step the business wants their readers, their prospects to do, and then what capabilities of the tool are. and how we can integrate it on the website. We try to integrate it so they don't have to go off their website. That's my first choice. And make it the fewest amount of clicks from any point on the website. If they decide, okay, I'm ready, how can they get into giving you money as the business owner or booking that appointment in the fewest amount of clicks? I mean, that's what it comes down to. And it's constantly kind of well, let's try this. Let's try this. Is this a new feature? And will this work better?
So the call to action, in other words, to have something happen, which is that they pick up the phone and call or they click to book.
Yep.
I mean, when you think about web design, what things lead to that? What constitutes an effective call to action on the website?
Yeah, the biggest thing is that you as the business owner are sick and tired of seeing that call to action. You're going to think, oh, I'm just repeating myself over and over, but a prospect is not going to see it that way. They're poking around, reading different things. And when they're ready, they need to feel trust that clicking that button is the most accurate thing to do. So consistent call to actions and throughout the site. So they know that door is open whenever they're ready to take it. I also really like, an easiest way to do that is to have it up in the top navigation, usually in the far right. That's a button form. So it's on every page. It's consistent. And it's like their home base. They always know where to go once they make the decision to book.
Do you make those buttons like red or, I mean, is there a best practice about how to call attention to that design feature?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about button colors, right? I personally like to add some sort of animation or something to stick it out. So if you hover over it, it gets a little bit bigger, or the color changes, or something to be kind of engaging. There's no magic color, but you do want it to be probably whatever your brand accent color is. So that goes back to one of those things that I said makes a good website. Most brand palettes will have kind of two primary colors that are complementary, and then a third accent color. Typically that accent color is for that call to action.
Mm-hmm. All right. Good to know. I mean, you made a good point, Connie, about the pictures earlier too, because there was years when you would go on a spa website and they would all have that picture of the water drop or a lady with the towel. Like they all had the same picture. We didn't have, Shutterstock back in the day and options. So let's talk a little bit about using a Shutterstock or a photography source versus shooting your own. What are some of the pros and cons of that?
Yeah, it comes down to trusting your business. And, as someone who books facials and massages, if I'm looking for a new place, even more than the words on the website, I'm going to picture myself in the pictures there. Like, is that someplace I want to go for a relaxing day, for this treatment? So it really comes down to trust. So absolutely invest in the photo shoot. Get some nice photos of your facility, assuming that you have a nice facility to show off, because that's the doubt that readers have, is if you're just using stock photos, the question is, what are they hiding, right? Is there a space not nice enough to take a picture of? So even if it is a gorgeous space, you're introducing that element of doubt into that trust cycle that we're trying to get into with the prospect. So absolutely invest in the photo shoot. It doesn't need to be a big one, but you need, maybe 10 photos of your space showing. I would recommend also get one photo of each service, because you're going to have a page for each service. You need to show what that service is, because I might not know, what waxing is like if I've never done that. I need to see kind of, what that looks like. And that's where we get into the use of stock photos. There are some intimate services where you probably aren't going to show it, but you could show, the countertop with, some of the equipment that you use, some of the products that you use. Or there are some uses where then at this point, some stock photos where we're just showing more of a close-up skin shot or something might be useful. But that, I would say, only in tandem with having some real photos of your real space and your smiling front desk, and just so people can trust you, and they can know that you're different from all those other spa. Because you're right, it is still the case where a lot of spa sites you go to, they're all using really similar pictures, and people can tell the difference between stock and a real place.
I think now they certainly can. Now we're all starting to ask if it's AI or not, but that's another story.
That's true.
Do you think it's smart to have sort of the video tour on where somebody walks through and takes a video?
Yeah, I love the use of video, particularly as backgrounds. So once you land right on the site, maybe you have some text on the screen, but behind that is showing, maybe just a 20, 30-second clip of your space, a walkthrough, smiling front desk, all of that. I think it's really welcoming. And it just is a great way to show your brand without saying what your brand is. You can show it. And that goes for, diversity and all of those things too. If you show that we are for everybody instead of saying it, there's just so much powerful things that can come from a good photo shoot or a good video shoot. So yeah, I really do love the walkthrough. Either, a smaller video that you play and someone's walking you through the space, or even just a 20, 30-second clip of some of the rooms, the spaces. That's a background video. Both of those are really effective.
When you say background video, you mean like when I go to the homepage, it's already there, it's moving?
Yep. There's no sound on it. It's moving,
Interesting.
looping behind. It would typically take the place of like a banner image.
Right.
If you have text over the top of an image, but you can have just a moving video clip that loops. Again, no sound, but it just invites you in and shows you the ambiance of the space.
And how about the people? I mean, there's been different schools of thought over the years on whether you show a treatment with a person getting it or just the room, and then the pros and cons of showing people who maybe your client doesn't identify with, male,
Yeah.
female, age, race, whatever. I mean, what are your thoughts on what should be done these days?
Yeah, that's a real tricky one. And kind of going along with that is the before and afters. Depending on what type of treatments that you have, they're really popular and people want to see that type of stuff. But I know you get into sensitive things there, and not everyone wants to put real photos of their real clients on there. I would say people in photos is valuable, particularly people showing emotions, smiles, that type of things. It really does connect with the reader, like an empty space photo just will never do. That said, I think if you use your team, your staff, showing them kind of as the center point, and maybe there is a patient there, maybe there's a close up, but you can't really see a whole lot of the patient. I think that that's a good medium ground for that, is to show some of your staff in those photos. But yeah, depending on the treatment, the person receiving the treatment probably isn't the focal point of the room, and room space is better than nothing either.
Right.
So
I do like the approach of seeing sort of maybe a body part or the back of a head or something where it's not like, oh, I know that guy, but you can see it's a person, but you don't have to see too much. That seems like to be a happy medium between an empty room and putting a person in there who turns off the viewer, who says, oh, wait, that's not me.
yeah. Yeah, in an easy way, like if you look at the stock photos that you're thinking about using, most of the stock photos are like that too, or a lot of them are. So you can get ideas from stock photos and then stage your own photo shoot to kind of replicate those macro shots that are showing, just part of the body.
Right. Well, is there any best practice, Connie, on how big a website should be today? Like how many pages, how complicated, what's being done?
Yeah, the answer to that is it depends on how many services you have. It's really important for SEO, for a spa, that they have a service page for each one of their services or service categories. So I would say
not all on one page.
Correct. I mean, and I see that a lot, that they're like services and here's our service list. That doesn't allow Google to rank you very high when someone's searching, say, facial treatment or skin treatments, Lincoln, Nebraska. Google shows pages. They don't show entire websites, right? They link to a specific page. So if you have a page that is all about facial skin treatments in Lincoln, Nebraska, and, you've got FAQs, you've got a description of the services, you've got photos. Now Google sees that as a really content-rich page, that if someone's searching facial near me and they happen to live in Lincoln, Nebraska, that page is going to be quality content in Google's eyes. So they're going to show you above somebody who has a massive services page that just lists those services out. So when I say one page for each service, I mean maybe one page for each service category. Yeah. So if you have a waxing page, a massage page, a facials page. So if you have a pretty simple, service menu, your site's maybe going to be 10 to 15 pages. If you have a team page, an about page, and contact page, and they start to add up, but you don't need a huge site. The bigger sites that I have that I've worked with are in the med spa space or wellness businesses. You all know who you are, who have, a giant services menu. And there's a lot of questions and information that needs to be shared about like the technology and stuff for those type of businesses. So if you have a traditional spa, maybe 3 service modality categories, your site doesn't need to be huge.
Mm-hmm. What about for fitness? How do you chunk it up for fitness?
Yeah, it kind of comes down to if they have yoga and Pilates, there's a page for yoga and there's a page for Pilates. But typically the fitness studios, they all are in like the under 10 page website package. Also depends maybe if they have retreats and workshops and those types of things. Every one of those services needs its own page. And it's not necessarily just for Google, but it's just for if someone comes in wanting a specific thing, you don't want them to have to sift through a long page that has it all listed on there. You want to be able to send a link to say, here's everything you need to know about our upcoming retreat. So, fitness studios are kind of usually in the 10 to 20 page, depending on how big they are and how many things they offer.
Well, let's speak to SEO, as you mentioned, search engine optimization. I can remember again back in the day when we had to think about all the different search engines to optimize for. And now we don't. We just think about Google.
There's one.
There's one. So that makes it easier. And yet I know they change the algorithm with some frequency. So, what are some best practices in SEO that you could share with listeners?
Yeah, it really comes down to, and you're right, it's always changing. And there's lots of talk, but if you just keep in mind that you are creating content primarily for the person that's going to be reading it, and then secondary for Google, you'll be fine. And with all this AI stuff that's coming out, Google is continuing to make, changes to their algorithm to try to sift out that kind of lightweight material that's coming from ChatGPT and all the AI stuff. So, you don't have to keep up with all that. You just have to keep in mind, like, if I write well so that people, will understand my services and, feel encouraged to contact me, then you're going to be just fine with that. But it really comes down to, backing it out, reverse engineering it, backing it out to how are people finding businesses like me on Google? What are they typing into? Put yourself in the shoes of their prospects. Okay. You're probably going to put massage near me or massage Omaha, Nebraska, or a smaller neighborhood, Southwest Sacramento, Fair Oaks. There's certain words that people use for your location, and there's certain words that people use for your services. And it's the combo of those two things that you need to make sure is in the text of your website so that you can connect those dots for Google. So a common mistake I see is the page title of the site, the headline of the site. There's no mention of their location. There's no mention of any of their services.
Totally right. I see that all the time. As a journalist, I'll be looking for a spa that does a blueberry facial, let's say, and I find them and I can't figure out where they are.
No idea, right? If you have to go to your contact page to figure out where this local business is, that's way too much work for most people. And you're hiding that information from Google as well. So
how do you weave that into your page?
Yeah, the top place would be your page title. And so depending on what platform you are, Squarespace, it's pretty easy. You go into the settings of the page. There's a spot for a page title under SEO. That's what shows up in the tab at the top of your browser. If you hover over the tab, that'll be the page title. That's the number one place. Put the location and the service on that page. So your homepage, that page title may be, spa, whatever your location is. Whereas those service pages, well, actually your homepage will probably be spa featuring facials, massage. So you're putting some of those in there, and then the location. Each one of those service pages is going to be optimized for that one term. So the page title is the one place. You need to make sure those two things, service and location, are in that. Also in the headlines of the page would be the next place I would look. So if you've got a big headline at the top, great if you can fit it in there. But if you want that one to be more of a catchy, engaging headline, a subheading under that is perfectly fine too. That you get your location and you have the service in there. And it's a balance for sure. We've all been to websites that you're like, well, this clearly was optimized for SEO and nothing else, right? So especially for spas where, you want to appear as a high-end business, and you don't want to look like you're shoving those words in. So it's a balance of how you can incorporate them in without just like clearly that's the only thing you care about is those keywords.
We're still using meta tags, like things that
Yep.
aren't really visible, but
Yep. And for those meta tags, and that's the little bit of text that shows for people listening on the Google search results page underneath the page title, the little kind of preview text that shows. That is a spot that Google doesn't care if the keywords are in there. So that is a place where you actually want to make it clickable. You want to make people really feel like, oh, I want to click on that. So that's kind of where that balance comes in. Keywords in the page title, meta descriptions written for an actual human, so that they want to click on your link. So really important still.
So how often should somebody be looking at their Google Analytics and making adjustments based on that?
Google Analytics would be more, if you're looking at where your traffic is coming from. Google Search Console will tell you what people are typing in to find yours. So it's a little combination of looking at both. I do that personally for my business quarterly to see what search terms I'm getting found for, which ones I want to get found for more, and kind of balancing that out, maybe optimizing a page more or less. So I think quarterly is good to check in, see where your traffic's coming from, see what search terms you're getting found for and which ones you're not, and then reevaluate.
So do you think it's important that businesses have a website that they can update on their own, or is it more efficient to have someone like yourself do it?
I think it is critical for a small business owner to be able to make updates themselves to their own website. And you could ask any business owner who went through the pandemic, how quickly changes needed to be made sometimes, and even just simple changes. So I think there's a difference between designing a website, redesigning a website. I think that's where you hire someone, but making day-to-day updates. And if you work with someone who makes that easy for you, sets up the site where you can make small updates to text, to images, and
change a price.
Right. Change a price, those types of things. I don't think any small business, it's just not viable that you should have to wait on someone else to change a price. If you need to change a price, change a price. So I think that's one of the conversation points that small owners need to have when they're interviewing web designers and talking to them is, who holds the keys to this website? Like, am I going to have to pay every time? And, or can I do basic things myself? I think it's critical.
Speaking to SEO, does the updating of the site play into that? I mean, I've heard that the more you're updated, the higher you'll rank. Is that true?
That's not that used to be the case more than it is now. Google really just cares about the quality of the content now. But if you are, constantly like adding new services, changing services, you may want to have someone, I think everyone needs a website person that they can go to if something breaks, if they need to troubleshoot, if they're adding something big, if they're changing something big. But day to day, you should be able to do some of those things yourself. I don't think changing things just to change things on your website is really a thing anymore when it comes to SEO.
Okay.
As long as you're not, if you're not being intentional about, we're actually trying to rank higher for this, so we're going to make some changes.
Well, it certainly is important to know what people are typing in to find you, as you said, and to make sure you come up on page one, right? I mean, that's the goal. I think if you're coming up on page 7 out of 100, you're not going to be seen, are you?
Correct. Yeah. You get nothing for being on page 2, even. Like, I think it's something, I don't know the stats, but it's like 90% of the search, clicks go to the top 3 results. So really, even if you're at the bottom of page 1, probably not helping your business bottom line.
Amazing. It's like a whole science that we never used to have to think about, but you really do now.
Yeah. And I would say on the SEO topic, that Google business profile, which is not directly related to your website, but that's where you show up on the map. It's the profile that just is on Google. That is the most important thing for your local SEO.
Really?
Log in, give it some love, make sure you have your services listed, make sure, send reviews there and everything. Because if you think about it, if you search for something local to you, that map's always at the top. So you have to scroll past that map listing to even find the website. So yes, website is important because most people will even see you on the map and then click to your website to learn more if they want to trust you.
Mhm.
But that Google business profile is the number one thing that you need to look at for local SEO.
So let's talk broader digital, Connie. I mean, of course, you want to have a website, or do you? Right now, sometimes I run across businesses now that don't seem to have a website. They have a Facebook business page, but they don't have a website. What are your thoughts on what's the strategy here?
Yeah, I think if you are banking on a certain social media platform to be your website, you really are painting yourself in a corner about the demographics of the people who are going to find you. One of the things that I do for my retainer clients is run Facebook ads. And I can tell you it's very clear demographics of, the ages and the genders of people who are on Instagram versus Facebook. So that's one, you just are hiding yourself from a big population that doesn't use that social media platform. And that's an ever changing thing too, which social media platforms, come and go. So it's definitely good I think the point of social media would be to drive people to your website because you can show more of what you do. You can, get found different ways. You can invite them in, that connection piece. There's just so much more you can do on a website. So yeah, absolutely. I think you need a website. One, for the visibility piece of it, and two, for the storytelling or the connection piece of it as well. I
You're
think
right. A Facebook post is one thing, right? I mean, you can't really tell the whole story that way.
yeah, and I think people, and today I would be mistrustful of a business who didn't have a website. If all I could find was on social media, there's not a lot of trust built up there.
No, I feel the same. Sometimes I'm like, really? You don't have a website? I mean, how hard is that? But I guess if you have a very specific niche of clients and you reach them on Facebook and you don't need any more, maybe that's a strategy. I mean, I know that owners think, oh, well, it's shareable, right? Social media, people will share and grow it. But I'm not sure how true that is these days.
Not anymore. It used to be much more of a thing, but organic reach on social media is so low now. I mean, even people who follow your page aren't seeing all your posts. So, yeah, I just, yeah, I think
Because
you need
there's
a
so many
website.
posts now. I mean, why did that happen?
Because Facebook wanted to grow their ads platform. That's how they make money. And so if they're allowing small business owners to, this probably happened 8-10 years ago. If they're showing, for free, small businesses that, can show their stuff to people for free, then there's no incentive for businesses to use their ad platform and pay money to use that ad space. So yeah, that was kind of the change there. I think in the past, people were able to run, with just a Facebook page, but not really the case anymore. You're just much more in a corner of the internet where people can't find you. So, you asked about strategies. Like if you are in a case where you don't need more clients, and there are businesses that do pretty well just off of referrals and they don't need more clients, like as long as you feel pretty confident in that you're never going to need more clients, then you might get away with that.
You tell in your search console, say, if clients are coming to you from social streams or from ads, like what are you seeing in terms of driving traffic to the website?
Yeah. Yeah, you can see, and that'd be Google Analytics. You can absolutely see the sources that people are coming to your website from. I could see from the clients that I work with, the more established your business is. If your business has been around for 10 years, you have a good chunk, probably half of your website traffic comes from organic Google searches. So not ads, just I'm looking for you. You've got a good presence on that Google
They know
page.
your name and like your town, and they just look for you.
Yeah. Or they are just searching for, massage near me, and you do so well because Google rewards businesses who have been around for a long time too. So, because they're trustworthy and they're credible. So you just show up naturally. You don't have to pay ads or anything. So you are afforded that luxury as a business who's established. You'll get, half of your website traffic that way. Newer businesses aren't going to show up real well. It depends on how good their SEO is and what the competition is. But newer businesses, when you look at their traffic sources, they've got to do a lot more hustle on social media or paid ads, ways to get people to their website because they're just not going to show up naturally right away. So,
Mm.
But I would say in successful businesses that have been around for a while, at least half of their traffic comes from Google without them paying for anything. So it's a long game for sure, but it's a good investment if you plan to be around.
Well, investment is a good word to lead to our next topic. I'd like to talk about the finances of all of this. I mean, do you have any recommendations for what should be spent in a digital strategy or overall marketing, or what percentage of your marketing is digital, et cetera? How are you thinking these days?
Yeah, it really depends. It goes back to, where are you at in the life cycle of your business? How much traffic do you need? Where are your people? I think that you invest first in your website, because all the paid ads and the digital, everything, every work you do, whether it's organic social media or paid ads, it's all going to lead back to your website. So if your website isn't converting, that's step one. Like, don't bother
Right.
spending all that
The
money.
leads that you can't convert. Right.
Right. Exactly. So you could spend anywhere, from website, from DIY to, getting someone to help you with it. My base package is $47.50. So just to kind of put that in context,
Great.
I have less and bigger ones as well, but just to kind of give you a baseline for that. So I would say first, start with your website. Second, get your organic SEO in place. So that's your Google business profile. That's the website optimizations. If you don't have that, if you have a beautiful website, great. Make sure you have those just baseline, basic SEO type stuff, because it's free and it'll help you in the long run. It's not something like a paid ad that's just going to go and be gone. So I would do that next. And then it gets into, strategies on, okay, do you want to run digital ads, or do you want to work on more guerrilla marketing tactics for referrals, encouraging referral, getting the word out within your community? And you can go either way there, right? One is going to take more of your staff working it and more time. Digital ads is just going to take more money. So you can kind of branch off, I think, from there once you have those two things in place. Budget wise, I think probably, most people are spending like 10% of their gross revenue on some sort of marketing activity. And you can define that either way, whether we're, spending the staff hours to run this promotion or whether we're doing digital ads. So.
Okay. So 10% of gross receipts is a good starting point. Maybe a little lower in spa because there's higher labor costs, in a spa business than a fitness business.
Yeah,
but
okay.
that's a good equation to think about. So if you're taking on a new client right now, what's an overall digital strategy involved? What else are we not talking about yet that we should be?
I think website or brand positioning is something that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. And it's really the foundation for a lot of all of this marketing stuff. For your website, for sure, your social media, knowing how you're different, how you're viewed in your local market in context, how you're different, and how you're going to amplify that out is, I think, critical to the success of all those other things, all those other tactics that you're going to do. So I feel like a lot of, people, with small businesses, they think the same way as their competition, and they're afraid to go outside of, what makes us different, why we're better. And they're afraid to talk that up. They want to kind of blend in. But if you can hone in on who your people are, what their pain points are, why they're coming to, what they want to get out of your services, then I think doing all of those other things is just going to be so much more beneficial for your business. So figuring out the competition, the competitive landscape, and figuring out where your business is positioned is pretty critical to all these marketing efforts.
That's a good point you make. I mean, on SEO, back to that, should I be using words that talk about what I do, massage, facial, fitness classes, or should we be using words that talk about the results of what we'll do, like my, hydrated skin or relaxed muscles? Which approach works better?
Yeah, both is the answer. So that's where that kind of balancing act comes. I approach it. I would write the text on your website, say your homepage. I would write the headline and write the paragraph. I would write all that with the client in mind. So glowing skin, less stress, all those things, those benefits. Write that, and then go back in and, like I said, can you add a subheading that has those keywords for Google in it? Can you mix in maybe another keyword here or there without losing the feeling of what you wrote? So I would say I always write for the person first. And then that's why, SEO is optimization. So it's not write everything from the beginning for Google. It's optimize your current content for Google. So it's sprinkling in a little things to not lose the whole point of it. One of the tips that I give people, and one of the things that I do with my own clients when we're working on that messaging, is to go back and look through their reviews, Google reviews, or wherever you have good reviews from clients, and look at the words that they're using to describe what they liked about your studio. I walked in and left feeling refreshed, and this is my, oasis in the city. Those type of words and phrases that really connect with prospects. Your own clients are using them. They're in your reviews. So that's a great place to kind of pick out little pieces that you can use in your headlines that can make other people feel like, yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So you don't have to invent it all from scratch, but that's how I would approach it.
Okay, that's great advice. What's next on the digital horizon? I mean, we've been looking at Facebook and Instagram for some time now, and Instagram continues to be a strong driver, I think, for many of these businesses. TikTok comes along, Pinterest was here. And what's next? Where do we need to be playing right now?
I think it's AI. For sure. And it's less about those content platforms like social media, and it's more about really personalized outreach that as a small business owner, you can leverage AI to use. So things like texting and emails. I think the whole industry, the whole wellness, fitness, beauty industry is going to have a kind of go full circle back to really personalized communications and outreach. I think that's what's going to differentiate businesses. All of our marketing has swung more towards the automated side. And I think AI is going to make it easier for small businesses and more cost considerate for small businesses to go back to having really personalized communications with the help of AI. So, I think we see ourselves with more one-to-one communications compared to just putting content out, putting newsletters out, putting that. So where it all goes is going to be really interesting, a little scary, but I think the AI kind of the tide is coming, and it'll be interesting to see how that really plays out for small businesses.
Oh, for sure. I went to the Consumer Electronics Show this year, as I have done for the last few years, and it was that's all it was every booth, every lecture, every device. It was all about what it could do in AI. And I think, well, that's great, but I don't know what to do with that as a business operator. I mean, how should I be preparing for this? I'm used to getting a personalized email. That's nothing new. What more can we be doing to be prepared to leverage this?
Yeah, I think it's still to play out because I think some people will use it horribly and it'll backfire on them too. I don't think it's something you need to jump in and be like, yes, everything AI, it's trendy. I think remember at the core that you are still a person business, and in-person relationships are important. And one of the things that I've seen that you're familiar with FitGrid, that platform. So I think they're kind of moving, and they focus on boutique fitness, but they plug in with schedulers in this industry like MindBody. The approach that they are taking is AI generated personal messages, and it's different from hey Lisa, thanks for coming in for your first appointment. Would you like to that's personalized to an extent because we can tell you had your first appointment, it was a facial, right? But now we're getting, like a tool like FitGrid is prompting more data into those emails. So it's even more personal, Lisa, thanks for coming in for your first appointment with Jill. She mentioned that you might want to try a massage next.
Wow.
So it's going a little deeper into the personalization. And what I like what FitGrid is doing is they're queuing up those messages for you, but there's still human oversight into that. you as the business owner look at the message and say, that doesn't quite sound like us. I'm not going to include that part before you send it. So I think that's the first use case that's going to probably start making its way into a lot of different tools. I think FitGrid's one of the first ones to do it well, to where you're using AI to give prompts that you still as a human can decide whether to use or not. So I guess to answer your question about like, what do I do with all this? Look to the tools you're already using and look and see what the opportunities there are. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. It's going to keep evolving and getting different. So you don't have to do it just because it's AI, but I think we're going to start to see that show up in more and more of the tools that business owners use in the everyday.
I think your advice is good about not feeling like you have to jump in. I mean, you want to be aware, but you don't want to jump in until you know how it's being used. And it's just also new all the time. This is what's hard for people who didn't grow up in the tech age. It's like every week there's something new and you feel like I can't work the remote on my TV anymore. It's all complicated and yet we have to keep up to keep our businesses going. So it's a challenge.
Yeah. And I'll share how I use it in my business, the AI. I don't use it for design at all because the AI design stuff is terrible. So don't feel like, you necessarily, get an AI tool to design your website. You're going to be missing a lot. But I do use tools like ChatGPT for, brainstorming ideas and outlining things. I do not use it. And I caution my clients to not use it for write my website copy because there's some legal risks there too. You might not have the copyright to that content. You don't know where ChatGPT got it, but I think it's really good for write me 10 social media posts about this promotion. And then you take that and then you tweak it and you make it what you want to. So first drafts, I think it's great for first drafts type things. And I think any small business owner can start using that now.
Yeah, I agree. I've been using it as well, just to kind of get some facility with it and play with it. But I agree. It comes back with something that's pretty simple on the surface and it looks very nice, but it doesn't have the nuance that it may need to have to really be effective. So I think you're right. A first draft approach is a good way to start. And then you do need to tweak it.
Yeah. And that goes back to what I was talking about your brand and about your positioning and how you want to stand out and be different and how you're going to connect with people. And if you're using the same type of output that ChatGPT is giving everyone, you're not going to, make yourself stand out in the market.
Well, very informative, Connie. Do you have any other last advice for listeners on a digital strategy?
Yeah, I would just go back to, my number one for this market specifically, invest in a good photo shoot. And we talked about budget and those types of things, but a good photo shoot with good photos you can use on your social media, you can use in your Google business profile, you can use on your website. So along with what you want your brand to be known for, showing your real business and in great photos can amplify all of those things as well. So, I know I talk about it a lot, but it is definitely an opportunity for spas specifically that not a lot of people are taking advantage of. Go invest, get a local wedding photographer or whatever who can take good photos one day in your space. And I think that's a great investment for all of your marketing.
I will second that. I mean, there used to be a time when we would say, oh, my sister takes great photos. She's got the latest phone. I mean, you need a photographer who uses a real camera and lights and knows how to set up a scene and set the stage, maybe a set director or something, because these images you're going to be using for 3 years probably, and you want them to be right. And you're right, a lot of people do cut the corner. My last pet peeve that you may laugh at is when I go to a business website and I can't find out when they're open. Their hours of operation or not on the homepage, what's the best practice for that? Where should they be?
Yeah, go spend a little bit of time updating your footer of your website. It's a great place to have the hours, make sure your location and your address is there too. What's great about using the footer of your website is it's identical and it's on every page of your website. So it helps, you're not going to forget. They're going to be able to see it. It also helps Google kind of tie all of that content back to you as a business. So your footer should have your address. It should have your hours if you have regular hours. And then maybe a quick link to contact you or to book, repeat that down there as well.
Maybe
yeah,
even a phone number for the old
yeah,
fashioned folks, right?
right. However, they can contact you. Yeah, it's good for credibility, and it's also just good. It's an underlooked spot of your website too, the footer,
For
to be
sure.
used for all that stuff.
Well, great advice, Connie Holan. Thank you so much for taking the time with us today. You can find Connie at Pixality Design, Pixality design.com. She has her own podcast on digital marketing, so you should give it a listen and get some more good tips. Thanks again for joining us.
Absolutely, it was fun. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.